This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Welcome to another episode of Business by the Numbers. I'm your host, Hunt Demarest, CPA with Parmelis & Associates. So the last 3 weeks, we've been going down through the 2024 benchmark report. And so we did a 3-part series on that where we went down through and compared hundreds of shops' financial and non-financial data to try and draw conclusions about different shop sizes, different types of shops, and really what makes these shops succeed, or maybe what is some of the things that some of these shops struggle with. When we went down through this, we realized that there was a lot of commonalities. There is some correlation, but not a ton, or not as much as you would think. And some of the common areas of how we judge a shop and maybe even judge our peers, whether it's sales, whether it's labor rate, whether it's ARO, car count, we've realized are pretty terrible indicators or predictors of profitability, future success, etc. One of the only areas, and one of the things that we talk about a lot is a key area here is productivity or efficiency, and probably the combination of both. And that's what I wanted to kind of go down through this week and not only highlight or kind of emphasize some of that, but run through an interesting exercise that I came across with one of my clients. Before we get into that, I just want to stop and say thank you to you and the rest of the dedicated listeners. Reminder, if you want your question answered on here or just have an idea for a future episode, shoot me an email at podcast@parmelis.com. And lastly, we cannot forget our dedicated sponsors, NapaTrax and ProMotive, for being such loyal supporters of the show. If you need a new shop management software, if you need to hire a new teammate, give them a call. I'm sure they can help you out, just like they have many other listeners. Hey, did you know NapaTrax is on-site training plus 6 days a week support? It all starts when a local representative meets with you to learn about your business and how you run it. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice. Let us prove to you that Trax is the single best shop management system in the business. Visit them online at napatrax.com. That's napatracs.com. It's time to hire a superstar for your business. What a grind you have in front of you. Great news, you don't have to go at it alone. Introducing ProMotive, a full-service staffing solution for your shop. Let them do the heavy lifting and enlist your hiring partner online at gopromotive.com. Like we were talking about in the introduction and kind of mentioned last week on here, productivity. We are talking about productivity as it relates to technicians, but you'll kind of notice that I'll use the terms productivity and efficiency somewhat interchangeable, and a lot of times that they are, but it's also a big distinction that we need to kind of delineate before we go any further. So productivity is just that. How much did you produce? Productivity a lot of times is used interchangeably with efficiency. If you're looking at someone and say, how productive was that person? Productivity is not really a fair indicator to judge a technician on without some other indicators, right? Or without some other data points. The reason is because these technicians are not necessarily the ones building and selling these tickets. And also, it's not necessarily the only responsibility that they have on a given day or a given work week. What I'll give you an example is the difference between someone that is 50% productive while being 100% efficient. If I look at someone and I say, all right, Steve billed out 4 hours yesterday. He was here for 8 hours. And I say, all right, well, he was 50% productive and 100% efficient. How is that possible? So if we look at that, efficiency has to do with working. Hey, are you spending your time in a billable format, right? And I do this somewhat for my business as well. If I'm looking at billable versus non-billable time and I say, all right, Technician A was on this job for 8 hours. He was not taking smoke breaks. He was not talking on the phone. He truly was working. He is 100% efficient. He is not wasting any time. He is only 50% productive because when we're talking about producing hours, what we're really seeing is hours that were paid for. So that same job that he spent 8 hours on, we only sold for 4 hours. So if I'm looking at that and I'm looking at these data sets, who am I mad at? And if you had kind of an answer there, if you had a person's name that you called out, then you might have that issue in your shop. But the information I gave you is not enough information to probably make that determination. And this episode is not meant to tell you the answer of, hey, where is the pain point? Because those numbers are going to have 4 different outcomes depending on what shop they're in. That could be a really slow technician. That could be a 3-hour job that he turned into an 8-hour job. And if he goes to the advisor and says, hey, why don't you get me more time? He might laugh at you. What did you do there? I cannot go to a customer and charge them 8 hours for a job that should take you 3, maybe 3.5 on a bad day. God forbid 8. In that situation, a technician that is properly trained or just slow, yeah, that could be 100% what's going on there. Could that be someone that a technician called for 8 hours, maybe even a 9-hour job? And that service advisor says, I'm never going to sell it for that much money. Maybe if I cut the hours back, I can land this job. That's exactly what could have happened there. Both of those two situations I just mentioned could have happened in your shop. The last one on here could be, hey, that was sold correctly. Hey, that technician was doing everything that they can. The reason it took him so long is that is your master tech in the shop. So every time he got started on this, he got pulled away. Hey, I need you to show me how to do this. Hey, I need you to show me how to do that. Hey, I need you to show me how to do this. And again, that could be a downside to your business. Again, the fourth option on here is that could have happened and that could actually be a good thing to your business. Hey, maybe that master technician lost 4 hours of work, but if he created 6 hours from other people by using his, knowledge and expertise on there, then again, having a very efficient but not super productive master technician could be a good thing. This is why this is so hard. This is why numbers can be very tricky. And part of the reason why we did the benchmark is, you need to look at these numbers. You need to compare them to your own numbers, but you also need to be mindful that a lot of times you're not going to be able to make that direct comparison that you're looking for. If you're looking at your business and you see all of your team is 100% productive and 100% efficient, then I guess just stop right there. You're going to be the first one I've probably ever seen that has done this. Maybe you don't have any room for improvement on there and pat yourself on the back. Now, for the rest of you on here, this is something that every single shop struggles with. This is something that most shops probably couldn't even measure or measure accurately of those two figures. Why are we wasting time of talking about this? Because this is truly the number one thing that all shops struggle with and that all shops can improve. There is pretty much no shops that are out there that are always doing everything that they could, and arguably you do not want that shop. If your shop needs 110% productivity and efficiency to work, you can do it. I've seen people that have done it. Is it the most stress-free environment? Probably not. Is it a rather competitive and cutthroat environment? Absolutely. Is it hard to kind of continue that in the long run? Hey, from what I've seen in my experience in shops, yeah, it generally is. I told you I was going to get into an exercise on here and kind of illustrate to this two different ways, but let's kind of take a look at maybe something that came off of the benchmark of last week of the economics behind a flat rate and an hourly person. Let's look at two exact situations. One of the persons is flat rate and one of them is hourly. Let's say if we have a person that is $35 an hour flat rate and we have a person that's $35 an hour on hourly or salary, right? Assuming no overtime. If we crank out 40 hours worth of work, we are going to pay that person $1,400. Let's say that our labor rate is $155 an hour. So if we have 155 times 40, that means we are going to sell it for around $6,200. If we are flat rate or if we are hourly, these are going to be the two exact same situations, right? $6,200 in sales, $1,400 in cost. Overall, we made just under $5,000 in gross profit, around $4,800. Okay. What happens when stuff starts to go up and when stuff starts to go down? If you are kind of under the efficiency curve, then generally being flat rate works out because as it goes lower, your amount goes lower. Let's say that we only sold 30 hours. So that would be, instead of $6,200 in sales, $4,600, right? So that's a decrease of about $1,800. If we are flat rate, we are not going to lose $1,800 because even though we paid our technician $1,400, it's probably going to be more like $1,000 because he didn't produce as many hours. So instead of losing $1,600, maybe we only lost $1,200, comparing gross profit from week to week. Now, if we're hourly, we truly lose those sales dollars. Our cost for that technician is sunk at $1,400, no matter if he produces 1 or 1,000 hours. So if you start losing productivity, it hurts you a lot more on the hourly sides of things. But also, keep in mind on the flat rate side of it, yeah, you are saving money, but you are losing gross profit generally twice as fast as you are losing expenses. Going from, being at 75% productivity is slightly better if you're flat rate versus hourly, but we're looking at losing, a comparative $1,600 versus $1,200. Still, neither one are good situations. If we look at this the other way, it's the same idea, but reversed. So if I have a very productive technician that is salary or hourly, and I have an extra 10 hours of work, that's what, $1,500, $1,600 in additional sales. Also an additional $1,600 in profit. Now, if that's flat rate, again, I'm still making more money, but I'm also paying more. So it's, again, just like on the downside, only going to be at about an extra $1,200 in gross profit. Flat rate kind of minimizes, you can't win as much, but you can't lose as much either. So you can see very clearly, I think, going down through this example, if you can have a very profitable shop where people are not necessarily a variable expense, meaning, hey, I can actually get into very efficient areas where you're cranking out maybe 3, 4, 5 times your cost, and I can really get that labor gross profit margin pretty exponential. Now, on flat rate, if you're paying a guy $50 an hour and you're selling it for $100, doesn't matter how many they sell, you're never going to be above 50%. There's no efficiencies to be had, and you maybe are looking at that of saying, well, hey, that's probably hard to scale. Again, I think you know where this is going, but that's kind of what we're going to do on this last example.
NapaTrax was built from the ground up to make your business more profitable and efficient. They provide an extensive set of tools to increase and track profitability in real time. NapaTrax offers the industry's best post-sale support hands down. They train your people on site. Yes, on site. They also offer remote refresher training 10 times a week, and customer support is open 6 days a week. Give them a call, visit them, or join our Facebook community today to learn more. They'll prove to you that Trax is the single best shop management system in the business. NapaTrax is always customized and tailored for your business, whether you're a one-man shop or a large multi-bay or multi-location company. After all, it's your shop, so it's your choice. Visit us on the web at napatrax.com. That's NAPATRACS.com. Is your recruitment process draining your valuable time and resources? What if there was a partner who could take your recruitment efforts off your plate? Look no further. Promotive is your ultimate solution for hassle-free staffing focused solely on the automotive industry. On the web at gopromotive.com. Promotive understands the challenges you face when searching for the perfect technician or service advisor for your shop. That's why we've developed a platform that takes the hassle out of recruiting. Michelle Tanzi from Euroclinic said, I am a shop owner and recruiting new talent is so time-consuming. Promotive does the majority of the seeking and recruiting. They reach out to the candidates for you, and when they feel they are a good match for you and culture, they make the connection. They follow up throughout the interview process, and we make sure that the candidates are a good fit and the shop is a good fit for the candidates. I admire that they genuinely want both parties to win. They recruited and paired us with a solid B-Tech and Master Tech. Both left a dealership position and are still part of our team. We are very happy with the character and culture match, and both technicians have become valuable team members. Visit our website at gopromotive.com today and join the growing community of shop owners who have found their ideal team members with Promotive.
Before we kind of get into this last example and maybe open your minds a little bit more, I want to kind of cheat a little bit and talk to everyone about how to look at productivity or how to measure this. It's fairly simple. If you go to your shop management software, you take your hours sold and you compare it to how many you paid out for your people. That's fairly easy. Hey, I got 2 guys there. They work 40 hours a week. That's 80 hours. All right, they sold 60, paid them 80. You're at 75%. Now, that's using your effective labor rate. That's hours sold. A lot of times when I look at this, I will just take your labor sales and I say, what's your street rate, right? What's your labor rate? And I'll divide your labor sales by your street rate. The reason is because I don't care how many hours you sold. I care how many hours you sold at your street rate, right? Like we've said time and time again, that's great. You sold 100 hours, but if you sold them for $1, I don't really care. If we're looking at this and we're kind of, working through things, if you want to just kind of get either a carrot out there to look for, or maybe just kind of a quick sanity check, what I do is this. You know how much you're doing right now in sales. You know how much you're doing in gross profit, maybe. Maybe you don't know any of this stuff, but this will be a good podcast for you if you don't. So what I do is I say, all right, how many technicians do you have, right? Let's try and figure out what your theoretical max sales volume could be. And do I think that you're going to hit this? No, but hopefully it's like twice what you're doing right now and you're shooting for something in between. So let's say we have 3.5 technicians and, average person works around 2,000 hours, 2,080 a year. So if we take 3.5 times 2,000, and let's say our labor rate is at $100 an hour, just for simple math, we are going to sell around $730,000 in labor if we're to sell all of those hours. Generally, most shops are 50-50 parts and labor. So if I double that, we're going to get around 1.45 million, because if we're selling labor, we're going to be selling parts. So when I'm looking at this, ignoring inefficiencies, ignoring demand and stuff like that, if I was be able to hit 100% productivity for the entire year, my shop would be at around 1.45 million in top line sales. I actually did that, like 3.5 techs, 2,000 hours, $100 an hour was actually a real shop's number. Now, this was a little bit while ago that I did this, but I want to say that they were doing around 700,000. They were averaging right around 50% productivity. And I kind of ran those numbers for them because they knew the importance. Like they could kind of understand the aspect of how this stuff works, even though I'm going to give you one more exercise to hammer this home. But they, at the same time, I don't think kind of realized the magnitude. They kind of like looked at this of like, well, I'm the same thing, like adding a couple bucks to labor rate. It's like, no, if you were to truly double your production, this is a massive, massive difference. But I mean, think about that. If you got a shop doing 700 and that shop now goes to 1 million, while costs are relatively exactly the same, profitability is going to skyrocket. They would not need to get all the way to 1.5. Now, flash forward to today, they've added some more people, but they're actually doing a lot better. I think they're averaging around 1.2 or so. Not at 100% productivity, but probably pretty damn close to 75%. And if you're looking at like the way I look at it of, hey, what's your total labor dollars sold divided by your street rate? In that way to look at this, ignoring effective, if you can be around 75%, you're probably going to be in a pretty damn good spot. Not that it wouldn't be better if it was higher, but I have a lot of shops that are cranking out some serious money at around 75%. If you look at that metric that we use, the top shops, using that metric, ignoring effective, average around 70. The last one on here, I know that you guys understand the importance of this, and hopefully you kind of understand how to calculate this and look at this. But to kind of go back on the last 3 weeks we talked about here, just to illustrate that there are so many different ways to run a business. And this is the exact situation of where, as I first kind of got explained to it by my client, I'm not sure that I was super hot on the idea, but I was really just more kind of confused. I had to run these numbers to see, but sure enough, I think this works. Let me pose this question to you. I got 2 people coming in. One is going to be $35 an hour. He's just an hourly person. The other person is going to be the highest paid technician that I've ever had, and they're going to get around $50 to $5 an hour, and they're going to be flat rate. Now, they want no guarantees. They don't want anything like that. Keep in mind, my labor rate's right around 155. So these numbers both work to a certain extent, but this is about 50% more than I've ever committed to pay someone. That is a lot of money. Now, what are you going to say to yourself? If you're looking at this situation, you probably have one hypothetical that's going to make you able to kind of make this decision, or you should. Well, how much is this person going to produce? And if your thing was anything else than how much does this person produce, you are missing the boat here. Let's take a look at this in a couple different ways. If you're just looking at strictly cost of technicians, let me kind of give you this comparison. So one of these technicians costs $4,400 a week. The other one costs me $1,400. Which one do you like more? If you've been doing this long enough, you should know that you probably like the higher paid technician. Hell, some of you guys might have been that dealership technician that always had a target on your back, because I've heard it from you guys before. Hey, someone in a suit, someone looking at a spreadsheet, looked at how much they paid me as a technician, and they were like, why do we pay this person that much money? I can't have a technician making me $220,000 a year. Where all of you guys know or knew then, might have forgotten now, if I'm paying a technician $225,000 a year, he is probably getting me over $1 million in sales. So yeah, he is the person I'm paying the most, but he is probably producing the most. Now, the reason I have to bring up that example is because it seems like a lot of shop owners kind of somehow forget that over the years. When you make that jump from employee to owner, sometimes you guys are guilty of your own transgressions from your previous bosses of judging someone strictly based on the numbers, and you can't do that. We got one technician that costs $4,400 a week, and we have one that costs us $1,400. And what these are the last paychecks of both of these two people. One of these is making $55 an hour, is the highest paid employee my client has ever had. The other one that cost him $1,400 was the technician that was replaced by this guy's paycheck the week before. One of the big things that my client had always kind of battled with the team was productivity. And this person was no different. So he averaged just over 50% productivity or so. I don't know the efficiency numbers, but it's not important on this one. But he, I think, was averaging right around 26 hours a week. If we take a look at the economics of both of these, I'm going to show you how that looking at this based on someone's cost, on how we pay them, any of this stuff is very, very misleading. And again, of course, the labor rate's going to be the same. It's the same shop. The cheaper technician, hey, I don't want that rock star. I can't afford $4,400 a week. That's too much. Give me the $35 an hour. Perfect. He's in your shop right now, and he is going to crank out $4,000 a week like clockwork. That's what he did for my client. He averaged right at 26 hours. Didn't really go up, didn't really go down. And we could count on him, if you take the $4,000 minus his cost, he generated about $2,500, $2,600 of gross profit a week. You can see why my client hung on to him. He's not blowing it out of the water, but he's also not sucking too bad, right? It's right there getting by, but my client's not happy with getting by. He's got goals, he got things that he needs to do, and finally said is enough, and took the leap of faith and he got this guy in there. Now, sure enough, his first week he gave him a massive paycheck. But again, you know that that's probably not a bad thing. Turned over his paycheck, his general manager said, boss, what the heck are we doing? We've never paid a guy this much money. And the proof is in the pudding. And he said, we probably never had a guy that produced this much work. And let me show you. We made around $2,600 on old technician last week. We only paid him $1,400, but he only got us around $4,000. This new technician, we paid him $4,400 this week. He sold us $12,400 in labor sales. He billed out almost 80 hours in his first week on there. Gross profit exactly the same. We're at 65% for this guy. We were at 65% last week for the old technician. Last technician generated about $2,500 in gross profit. New guy, most expensive person we've ever had, generated around $8,000 in gross profit. So if you're looking at labor rates, they were exactly the same. If you were looking at a gross profit percentage, they're exactly the same. If you're looking at cost, one of them costs about 3 to 4 times as much as the other one. Yet, the one that costs the most is going to be the one that's going to have the best business, be the most profitable, and ultimately be someone that people are the most happy with there. Why do I say this? Is it to advocate you paying your guys $55 an hour flat rate? Nope. Is it for me to advocate you changing your pay plan? No. I don't think that the pay plan, I don't think that how you structure this stuff is necessarily the end-all be-all, because from these benchmarks and what my clients have taught me, that is not that simple. Am I going to tell you that if you're able to motivate your team, either in monetary, non-monetary ways, from 50% to 80%, that you're going to make more money? Absolutely. I will guarantee it. If you go from 50% productivity to 80% productivity and you aren't printing money on it, you can call me up and I'll print some money for you. But honestly, you can call me up and just say, hey, I think I did the math wrong there, because if you truly went from 50 to 80% productivity and you don't make more money, then I think your calculator's broken. But hey, prove me wrong, right? I've been proved wrong in the past by people doing stuff that I didn't think would work and making a bunch of money. But hey, maybe you can be the first one of doing stuff that I thought was all good things and it somehow screwed up your business. So you learn something every day. Hopefully this was helpful for you. If you have someone that you know that is struggling with productivity or maybe having a hard time grasping the idea of productivity and efficiency, send them over this episode and it'll solve all of their problems. As always, thanks again for listening on the Aftermarket Radio Network. You can find all shows on the aftermarketradionetwork.com and on your favorite podcast listening apps. So thanks again for joining me on Business by the Numbers. Stay safe out there, and I will talk to you all next week.
You've been listening to Business by the Numbers with Hunt Demarest on the Aftermarket Radio Network. Follow Hunt on your favorite podcast listening app. Let him know what you'd like him to cover. His email is in the show notes. Hunt is all for advancing the aftermarket.